We had 7 of the top 10 finishers from last year, but on the men's side, only 3 finishers from last year are back again this year. And in fact, one of those from Colorado, Joseph Bossard, is injured. So actually only 2 now. Parker Stinson from Oregon and Lowly Lalang from Arizona are the only 2 from the top 10 last year that are back again in 2012. This is how the teams shook out last year. Colorado won both on the women's and on the men's side. Stanford was 2nd, Oregon 3rd, and UCLA was 4th. That's last year's team competition. And remember, the points on the right side, you get a point for whatever place you finish. Top 5 finishers for your school score. You add those places together, and that is your total.
The perfect score is 15. That's if your top 5 runners finish 1st through 5th. We don't see that very often, obviously, but it was very close between Colorado and Stanford last year.
Stanford came in last year as the 2-time defending champions. Colorado, in their first Pac-12 meet, won it. And we have a false start. Double guns. So somebody jumped it. And we'll bring everybody back on the line. Before Colorado joined the Pac-12, Stanford and Oregon had absolutely dominated the men's side, splitting 11 straight. But it all changed when Colorado, a national power, joined the Pac-12 along with the University of Utah. Now, on the women's side, all 12 schools in the conference are represented, but on the men's side, only 9 schools in the conference field a men's cross-country team.
That's right. USC, Utah, and Oregon State do not field men's teams in cross-country. And luckily for these athletes, they don't have the same false start rule as they do in track.
For Stanford, you want to keep an eye on the Rosa twins. Joe Rosa is a sophomore. His brother Jim Rosa is a redshirt freshman. And both of those guys should be right in the mix. And especially for the team competition, Stanford is one of the favorites along with Colorado, Oregon as well. 8 kilometers. And Dwight, we talked about the heat being a factor. It was much hotter yesterday in Santa Clarita. Again, about 30 miles north of Los Angeles. It was in the high 80s yesterday. Right now, it's 66 degrees.
Yeah, that's a big, big help. But you can tell by the wind on our microphones that the wind has picked up. When I was downstairs interviewing Katie Kroger, the winner of the women's race, it had certainly picked up since I was here initially at 8 a.m. So that is going to be an issue. I think that's why we saw the times a little bit slower than we expected. And I don't expect that it'll be any different on the men's side. It'll be a tactical race for those middle placing athletes on each of the teams, but we do expect Lowly Lalang to get out in front and really dominate like he has throughout his collegiate career, which has been a short one. He's just a sophomore.
And there's the 2 Kenyans for the University of Arizona. Lowly Lalang wearing the 25 and wearing the hip number 30 is Stephen Sambu. These 2 guys have both gone just about 23 minutes this year at the Wisconsin Invitational. Lowly Lalang won the race, 23:03. Sambu was 2nd in 23:07, and actually Sambu is leading right now, maybe just pacing him. But don't sleep on Sambu. He can win this thing if he has a perfect race today.
Let's also not forget that University of Arizona being in Tucson, they're at altitude. That certainly does help the athletes from both Arizona and from Colorado. They all train and live at altitude, and then they come down here to sea level. That certainly is an advantage, and this meet is in Colorado Springs next year, so that advantage for those 2 schools and the athletes in those 2 schools will certainly hold.
Some of the other names to mention, we mentioned already the Rosa twins. Jake Hers for Colorado should be in this. Parker Stinson for Oregon. Lane Worley for UCLA. And Parker is currently running 3rd right now. Parker Stinson from Austin, Texas, running for the University of Oregon, was 7th in last year's Pac-12 meet. As a sophomore, he was the first team all Pac-12 selection.
And Wade, let's also remember that running is a national sport in Kenya. This is something where they have a tremendous amount of pride. It's a great thing for them to be able to come over here, go to school, represent the school in cross-country as well as track and field, and then come back and try and make Olympic teams. So this is just one of a number of steps that the Kenyan athletes can go through. And the Pac-12 now the strongest conference, top to bottom in cross-country in the collegiate ranks, and having outstanding runners who are capable of winning the NCAA championships, almost a given. 3 Olympic medalists I can think of right off the top of my head who were NCAA cross-country champions would be Galen Rupp from Oregon, who won a 10,000-meter gold, a silver medal last summer in London. Bernard Lagat, winning a couple of 1,500-meter medals when he was representing Kenya. And Ned Keflezighi of UCLA, who won a silver medal in the marathon back in Athens. So some very, very good athletes that come out of this conference in cross country and track.
The two Wildcats from the University of Arizona continue to lead. Sophomore Lowy Lelang has never lost a collegiate race. He was 6-0 last year. He won the Pac-12s and he won the NCAA championship. And really in that NCAAs, he was all by himself. He took the lead at the 4K mark and essentially ran alone the rest of the way. The NCAAs, they run a 10K. He turned in a time of 28:44. Lowy Lelang 2-0 this year. So for his collegiate career, he is 8-0. Last year, one of the best seasons in collegiate history. His average margin of victory was a ridiculous 22 seconds. Stephen Sambu didn't race last year, but in 2010, he was both the Athlete of the Year and the Newcomer of the Year in the conference, and he finished second at the NCAAs.
So you can see it's a big, big group at the front. Lelang and Sambu not taking it out too quickly. Maybe a race plan that they figured out based on the loops on this course and the way that that last 1K loop finishes. Now that's a very, very large group, which makes me think that they aren't running all that quickly. We can't really get a sense of pace here because we're not sure exactly where the different K markers are. But certainly this is not an early runaway by anyone.
Lowy and Sambu out front. One of the Rosa twins is now running third. We think it's Jim Rosa.
They came a little quicker that time.
Dunbar is up there for Oregon along with Stinson. Hers for Colorado. That was one of the names we mentioned, Jake Hers. Colorado's top finisher at the pre-nationals. He actually finished fourth overall in that race in 23:19. The pre-nationals at Louisville a couple of weeks ago. And that's the barometer nationally. All the best teams in the country go to one of maybe 2 or 3 invitational meets to start the season. Wind is really picking up now. We're up on a bluff just over the start-finish line, and the wind has at least doubled since the start of this race. Now, I don't know if they're feeling it down on the course because they're running through canyons.
I can tell you it's not as bad as it is up here, but it has definitely picked up from when I got here at 8 o'clock this morning.
You talked about all the big names that the Pac-12 has produced over the years. These are just some of the legends and just some of the schools represented. The great Dathan Ritzenheim for Colorado, Chris Derrick, who finished second in the Pac-12s last year. And you already mentioned Galen Rupp. Galen Rupp won the Pac-12s in 06 and 08. He was the NCAA champion in 2008. Steve Prefontaine, the NCAA champion in 70, 71, and 73. Alberto Salazar, one of the great marathoners in American history.
And who was not on that list, Jerry Lindgren, who won 3 times the NCAA championship in cross country. So this conference, even back in my days when it was just the Pacific 8 conference, has had some really great distance runners who've represented the U.S. very, very well internationally as well. As Colorado on the team side is leading over Oregon early on. Still plenty of time for this race to develop. Stanford well back, but we saw that with Washington on the women's side. Still plenty of running left to do. And I have to tell you, Waddy, when you've got somebody as dominant as Lowy Lelang, who is 8 for 8, who is dominating every race that he's in, it is intimidating to the other athletes in this race. There's no question about that. They're just watching to see what he's going to do. And it's almost like hearing footsteps being behind him. It's like, okay, when's he going to make the move? And what am I going to do when he makes the move? Or can I even cover the move? These kinds of thoughts, you always, as an athlete, want to have your competitors thinking more about you than they're thinking about themselves.
And they don't just have to worry about Lowy Lelang, they have to worry about Sambu, too, who's that buffer between the leader and the rest of this field. And right now it's Trevor Dunbar, the senior from Oregon, and then the junior for the University of Oregon, Parker Stinson, is running 4th. So 2 Wildcats and 2 Ducks in our lead pack. 7 minutes in, the men's 8 kilometers.
They're starting to string out a little bit more as they go through this loop. But Sambu is a good wingman for Lelang. Very, very tough 1-2 from the University of Arizona. I mean, with that type of a reputation, they've had others, very, very good runners as well. Robert Chesaret recently as well. If they just got 2 or 3 more dominant type of cross-country runners, they could really make a move and be a dominant force in this conference, which is saying something when you consider that Colorado, Oregon, and Stanford are also in the Pac-12.
Yeah, there is a great lineage of Arizona distance runners. You mentioned Robert Chesaret, 2004 and 2005 Pac-12 champion. Tom Ansberry back in 84. Aaron Ramirez in 86. Mark Davis in 89 and 90. 7 Pac-12 championships as a team for the University of Arizona, but they haven't won it since 99, and they're top-heavy here with Lelang and Sambu. Oregon has won the most team titles, 15, followed by Stanford with 12. Oregon's last conference championship came in 2008. The Ducks have also won 6 NCAA championships, the last one in 2008.
And those Washington State titles are back from the Henry Rono era, when Coach John Chaplin figured out that he could go get some Kenyan athletes and get a lot much more experience running and not only dominate cross country, but also the distance races at the NCAA track level. Of course, Bernard Legat also matriculated at Washington State, so they have made their impact in this really fine cross country conference as well.
It remains the two Wildcats, Lowy Lalang, Stephen Sambu, and the two Ducks, Trevor Dunbar, Parker Stinson. It's the Pac-12 Cross Country Championships.